I'm going to be making Samin Nosrat's Ligurian Focaccia from her Netflix TV show. And to begin with, it's a 2-day process because you let the yeast ferment overnight. And so I needed to start this ahead of time. What I have done is put 2.5 cups of lukewarm water in a measuring cup, and then I put 1/2 teaspoon of active dry yeast sprinkled over on top. And now I need to add the honey. 2.5 teaspoons of honey. Here we go. Now I know the trick. You're supposed to spray your measuring spoon with oil, and then your honey falls right out, but I didn't do that. And then I just do another 1/2. I'm not going to measure the 1/2. The good thing that honey does, or sugar, honey in this recipe, but sugar with yeast promotes growth. And so we want that all dissolved, and it's just going to sit aside, and as soon as it bubbles on top and we can see that it's active, then we can move on with our recipe. Okay, while that's bubbling, we're going to do the dry ingredients. We use the scale, or we need a good measuring cup. We are going to measure 5 1/3 cups of flour, which is it's exactly 800 grams of flour. So I want to make sure I'm on grams. And I'm going to put my bowl down, tare it to make it 0. And then all I have to do, so you don't have to worry about uncompacting your flour. In this case, if you're measuring by weight, you just sprinkle it down on in. There we go. Okay. I'm going to tare it again. And then I'm going to add 18 grams of salt. The nice thing about this recipe that she does is that's different than most of the recipes in the US, is that we're going to do a salt brine over the whole thing. That is equivalent to 2 tablespoons. Okay, and that's it. We're going to whisk that together. By whisking the salt, we incorporate it all the way through. We also give air into the flour, which is nice. We're just mixing, making sure that all the flour's mixed up. Okay, so I'm going to need a 1/4 cup of olive oil. Okay, I didn't write down how many grams of olive oil that is, but I'm just going to go ahead and measure my 1/4 cup and pour it into a vessel that I've already tared. So now I know that it's 44 grams is a 1/4 cup. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside. That gets put into the dough when we're ready to mix it. Okay, here we go. We're ready to add the liquid. And I want to make sure that I get all of the yeast out of there, because there was not much yeast in the dough to begin with. In the water. I'm going to stir this. It makes a mushy dough. It's going to be a very wet dough. After I'm done mixing it, we're going to put it in a bigger bowl that's coated in oil so it can rise. Like I said, it rises overnight. Okay. Looks like I need that last bit of olive oil to hold it all together. Coming together. I should have been in a bigger bowl than this. But you can see that it's sticking together. Okay, we're now going to transfer this to our big bowl. I've already coated it with oil, and we're just going to pour it in. bits. Okay, so this has been covered with oil at the sides. So what that does, it allows the yeast bread to go ahead and rise without being restricted by the bowl. It won't stick to the sides. I'm going to cover this with plastic and leave it overnight, and we'll look at it in the morning. By the way, did you know that the easiest way to get dough remnants out of your bowl is to go ahead and fill it with water, and then you're able to scrape everything off of it after a while, after it dissolves for a while. Okay, this morning, first of all, let me show you the dough. It's just amazing. A big bowl of it, all risen to the top and very flowy. You take about 2 to 3 tablespoons of oil on a baking sheet. Spread that around. Now we're going to dump this dough out, and we're going to need to give it about a 30-minute resting time to relax and go to all the edges of the pan. And so what we do, we don't want to really stir the dough. We want to just tip it out and kind of loosen it. I'm going to put some oil on my spatula. Just start taking it away from the edges, and basically just let it pour out. Hopefully without tearing. Okay. Kind of folds itself on itself. So then we need to stretch it out. It's very soft focaccia dough. It has a tendency to pull in. We're just going to keep. We'll come back about 2 or 3 times in the next half hour and stretch it out again. And we just leave it. We cover it with, make sure there's a bit of oil on top so it stays soft and moist. It doesn't dry out. We could cover this with plastic, but then there's a chance of the plastic sticking to it. So it's okay. It's not too hot of a day. So I'm just going to let this set for a few minutes, and we'll be back. Okay, time to stretch it again. This is actually all the way there. Okay, so I'm going to let it rest a little bit more. Okay, it has rested for 30 minutes. And I'm going to dimple the dough now. And to do that, you just use your 3 middle fingers. And kind of push the dough at an angle. Your fingers should be at an angle. And that's kind of an even way to do it. You can do an all-over pattern too if you want. But you can see that some of the dough is bubbling up when I push. And I'm trying not to go all the way through the dough, just to the top. So there's a gorgeous bubble right there. So I'm going to take the salt, it's 1½ teaspoons of salt, and add 1/3 cup of warm water. And this is making our brine. I'm going to stir that a minute. This gets poured over the whole top. Okay. Okay, after I've poured this over the dough, then I wait for the 45 minutes until I can bake it. I kind of want to tip all that over. It gets in the pockets, the brine gets in the pockets and adds a saltiness down deep into the dough. And that's it, another 45 minutes. Okay, We are ready to put this in the oven. I'm going to take off the plastic and take some of this excess oil and water. Just kind of sprinkle it on. Then I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of salt, not a lot, because remember we brined it. We want some crunchiness for when we bite into the crust. It's just fun to taste that burst of salt. Okay, into the oven at 450. Now I have preheated it 15 minutes ago to get it up to heat. I put one of these sheet pans upside down because I don't have a breadstone or pizza stone, and so that will give it that even crispiness on the bottom. And so I put that on a kind of a middle rack, and then I also moved one of the racks up high. Okay, as you can see, the focaccia is out of the oven, and we are ready to sprinkle it with a little bit of extra virgin olive oil, just to keep it moist. It soaks into the bread while it's warm. You'll probably use about 2 to 3 tablespoons on it. So there's a couple of hints that I want to tell you about and suggestions. Make sure you just use all-purpose flour. If you use a fancier flour, it could be heavier, and then it won't give you the rise that you're looking for, and it'll be very flat and dense. And so we want a lot of air pockets in there filled with oil and salt and all that good stuff. And then also rotate it halfway through the baking. As you can see, this side's just a little bit darker than the other, and if I had rotated it halfway through, it would have been better. I did rotate it when I moved it up to the upper rack for the final browning on top. And then finally, if you want to follow along, there's a great video that Samin Nosrat did on YouTube with Brad from Bon Appetit. It's pretty funny. And they made this together and forgot a few things. And then also on Netflix, when she does it makes this in Italy, there is the option to put in dry herbs and rosemary or oregano, that kind of thing. And so there is the option to put different things inside the focaccia before you bake it. So those are my takeaways. I'm going to send along a link for a PDF that has the recipe that's been adapted, and on there is the link for the YouTube video that Samin did. Oh, I forgot to show you how to get it out of the pan. Hopefully it will come right off. You probably need a metal spatula to break it away from the sides of the pan. But we want it to release. And then you're going to cool it on these baking racks. Okay, there we go. It's out of the cookie sheet. Let's look at the bottom here. I'm gonna flip it over. Oh yeah, that has a nice crust on it. Ooh, look at that big hole and stuff. Very good. Okay, it did pop out okay, so that's good to know. Okay. So good luck with your loaf. Okay, thanks for joining us, and sorry we can't meet as a cookbook club this month, but hopefully next month we will. Thanks, bye-bye.